to go to. I just don't wear them very often.
So let's just recap a tiny bit. So, faith and confidence is about the basic processes that we all have to do all the time in order to cleanse and purge the consciousness of all the different thoughts that we have already. And the thoughts, most of them are negative thoughts because they come from what we call the seething waters. I remember we did that last time. That the imagination imagines that we need certain things that we don't really need. And we talked about binge eating and shopping.
Like we're doing.
And shopping and the person goes out to fulfill the imaginary needs that he doesn't really have, or she doesn't really have. So this has to be purged, it has to be cleansed completely from the mind. And that's what faith is. The power of faith is the power of cleansing, of emptying the mind from everything. And the most important thing that we said was that it's not like in the East where when you empty your mind, all there is nothingness. But rather what you discover is that there's only Hashem. And Hashem is by definition goodness. And so your mind becomes full that everything will be good. You don't know how, but everything is good in its essence. And then confidence or trust, bitachon, is the ability to recreate a new world or a new thoughts, positive thoughts, and a new direction inside the emptiness that I created in my mind. And so that, in the Arizal's description of the creation, is that first Hashem created an empty space, and into that empty space he draws a line, a ray of light. So that ray of light is the new thoughts that will come down now. As opposed to the previous thoughts that were sort of like dispersed throughout the entire space of the mind, these thoughts are much more focused. That's why it's a ray of light. And they also do not represent a concentration of the previous inhabitants of my consciousness. It's not one of the questions that we asked. It's a big question in Chassidus is if Hashem wanted to clear it out and bring down a ray of light, so why not just clear everything out except for a ray of light? So he said because that ray of light would have been the residue from the previous thoughts. And this has to be something entirely new that comes down from the Or Ein Sof, from the infinite light. And to put it in other languages,
I had learned about that ray, that why it couldn't be just removed 99.
5 different answers.
And leave that, and then we wouldn't have free choice. It'd be such revelation of godliness if there was even a ray from the original light.
That I don't remember.
And so this has a 6.
Would you hear that?
YYJ.
I hope it's true.
Have to do some explosion or something. There's a famous mimer from the Rebbe Moarash that he gives 5 different answers for it. I don't remember, maybe. Doesn't mean that I remember. In any case, when it comes to us, so if we retain residue from those previous thoughts, so then it's not exactly a new light that comes down. And it's something that is based on the seething waters that created the original not so good thoughts. So last time we talked about, we started talking about the image for all of this is day and night. That nighttime is a time of faith, time of emunah. That's the pasuk, the second half of the pasuk. Ve'emunatcha baleilot. Your faith in you, Hashem, is at night. What does that mean? Why faith? Because faith is in time of darkness. Darkness here represents emptying the mind from all the seeming clarity that we had before. That we think that we had a clear vision of what we wanted. But the mind is full of light. Consciousness is light. So if the mind is full of something, it's full of thoughts, then it's filled with light. And so that has to be cleansed out, and then it becomes darkness. But darkness is actually higher than
It's-
light.
Light that is contaminated, or
It's not contaminated, it's just it's the result. The mind can't stop being illuminated. But it's illuminated now by all these fictitious needs, things that I don't
it's
really
also
need.
eliminated by things that are okay.
Okay, and
So can
that's
you
also
make
there.
another word, like, I don't wanna think that the light is, we're not trying to purge all the light.
No, all of it. I mean, obviously you can't completely empty your mind. It's not. The point is that any thought that's not purely Hashem, that you want to get out. So, and then you ask, but everything is Hashem. So you get sort of stuck. So what's stuck? So stuck means that in this case you have to free yourself from all your preconceptions of even what Hashem is. Even that, I have a conception of what Hashem is. I have a conception that Hashem is such and such. Especially when a person is going through a difficult time. So he says, Hashem, where are you? What he did, well, same thing that you can't see that Hashem is with you right now. It's just that thing that you're going through right now, it doesn't seem to you like Hashem. What does it seem like? It seems like it's in the Tanya explains it's overwhelming light actually. It says it's overwhelming. There's too much light and too few vessels to contain it. So in that sense, I have to get rid of my conceptions. My conceptions are like how I conceive of Hashem as like my vessels, the vessels of my thought, the patterns in which I think. And most people think that Hashem is good. It means that I get to do anything I want all the time. That's usually the meaning that most people subscribe to.
Did you
Hashem.
just say Hashem's a vessel?
No, my how I perceive Hashem is my vessels for containing the light.
Wow.
But Hashem is really infinite. There's no one conception that'll do the trick. There's no one vessel that fits everything that Hashem is. So I have to recreate vessels all the time.
I think it just needs to be square. Anybody tall enough?
Talking about light.
Uh-oh. Can somebody?
Sometimes it bursts after that. So.
Yeah,
Turn.
yeah, just turn the other one on. Put the other, hit the other switch.
Oh.
I'll let you count. So we're changing a vessel, actually.
So really, when we say purging the light, we don't get rid of Hashem. On the contrary, what we said is that when you empty it, so you become aware of that Hashem is everything. You become aware of Hashem's goodness in everything. So it's not that you really are empty. I said it's not like in the East. In the East, they want to become completely empty, completely nothingness. I want to become nothingness. I just want to connect back with Hashem as He is, in His infinite sense. My mind is always causing Hashem to be finite. It's like when you hit a brick wall in your life. It's because really what Hashem wants is that sort of like all your vessels crash on the wall and break and shatter, and the light is freed. And suddenly you have to redefine everything. Yeah.
You were about to talk about how the darkness is higher. Is that
Good.
how it's related, basically?
For us it seems like darkness. Right? The Prophet Yoel says, why are you waiting for the day of Hashem? It's darkness and not light. Because you think it's all going to be so light. What are you talking about? That's a lot of darkness. You're going to have to redefine everything. I just on the way here, I heard there's a satirical show on Galei Tzahal. It's on between 11 and 12. So I got the tail end of it, and it's amazing that people have a conception. It's like a religious presenter and a non-religious presenter, and it's satirical. So they laugh a lot. They make a lot of jokes. But the one who's not frum, so she said, how could Hashem give us a gift, and that gift needs so much upkeep? She was referring to Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
So how can it be that it's a gift and you have to fight for it and you have to conquer it and you have to this? said Hashem also gave you a gift called life. And I've never seen anybody who could just cruise through it. I don't know, what are you talking about? Where are you living in? What world do you live? Like the world of, like it's completely disconnected from, what you understand about the Torah is so disconnected from life that it's like, what's going on here? So she explained the messianism, meaning being messianic means that you think Hashem is going to take care of everything. But all the Nevi'im tell us it's exactly the opposite. That when the Mashiach comes, there's going to be a lot more work, except that it makes an impression, begins to make an impression. That now, every time that you advance, it's like everything falls down again. Like I always used to give the example of washing the dishes, right? They wash the
pile up
dishes,
again.
and it's unbelievable. How does it do that? For men, it means I put tefillin on yesterday. I have to put tefillin on today. So I put it on yesterday. What do you want? So the Rizal explained it that this is called the falling of the malchus every hour, every moment. That whenever you pick reality up, it tends to fall back down. That's the state of exile. In the state of Mashiach, you do, and it stays up. That's the big difference. But in the beginning, it's darkness. Okay. Then it's aliyah she'en achar asuf. There's no yerida afterwards. That's why it's described that the final redemption is a redemption that has no exile after it. It doesn't just mean no exile in the sense of that the third temple won't be destroyed. It means that everything that you do that's right sticks and it stays. And on the personal level, there's no exile. You don't go backwards. You just go Michael el Chai. You go from one state to the next. But each state requires you to get rid of the previous conceptions that you have. But then you're not afraid of it because you know, you see very clearly that every time that you advance, you did advance. Now the truth is that it really is that way in life, but a lot of times it seems that we regress, that we go backwards, and we're dealing with the same issues that we dealt before. Because in this world, the way it is now, still everything falls down even after you pick it up. So in any case, every time you have to purge even your conceptions of failure. Even that's a conception that we have in our mind, that we do it and it falls down. Even that you have to get rid of. Because otherwise, if you don't get rid of it, you're not ready for Mashiach. Because again, Mashiach is a switch. It's a change into a new frame of living, in which when you advance, you advance. You don't go backwards. But then to advance to the next level, you have to purge, you have to get rid of the previous conception still. Yeah.
So someone asked me today, they believe in Hashem and Hashem is good, and why they worry. So after Mashiach comes, and you have the realization that you don't need to worry about this, whatever they're worrying about, then that sticks, and they won't go back to worrying about it.
They'll worry about something new.
And then they'll have that realization.
And each time that you worry, what are you worrying? It's called that's what we mean with the en megalim sitrei Torah lemisha libo doeg b'kirbo. That Hashem doesn't reveal the inner teachings, the inner secrets of the Torah, unless it's a person who worries inside. What is he worried about?
Are you serious?
That I'm worried about whether or not Hashem will reveal more to me. Okay, I'm worried about more progress. You have to worry about it. Misha libo doeg b'kirbo, the person who's in b'kirbo, it says like inside of him. It's like a korban. I want to come closer to you, Hashem. I want to come. And how can it be? This is the end. This is as close as it can come. There's nothing more. Hashem, if you're infinite, there must be much, much more.
So how do we flip that worry now before Mashiach comes?
You can't.
You can't.
We have to get ready for it. So if at least I get rid of the worry right now, maybe I'll be ready for when the light of the Mashiach strikes, maybe it'll enter me.
So it's a misconception to think we aren't going to worry.
Again, it depends on what everything is good. It just has to be in the right context or focused on the right thing. Every power that we have in the soul has a purpose. So worrying is a very important. Da'aga is very important because it brings out next level. It prepares you for something new. You have and worry is like anticipation, really. So you can either worry about it in the sense of making something negative, or you can just anticipate it and be like excited. It's like when you're going to see somebody you haven't seen in a long time. It's like so like sometimes it's called gaguim. It's called yearning rather than worrying. You just have to tinker with it a little.
Yeah.
Like, get it, shoot it to the right place.
So sorry, just on that point, we just have to, because we worry about all sorts of things, so we just
Right.
have to.
So those are the
worry
seething
about-
waters. Usually the stuff that we worry about is just made up. We don't need to really worry about it.
So we should just like rectify the worry towards a gargoyle.
So sometimes we can't. It's just, again, in order to change it to change the conception, I have to purge out the previous one. I can't just churn it into. I don't know how to transform something without actually like getting rid of the old picture that I have of it.
Are you saying like the ray of light that can't
Okay,
come
good.
in unless it's 100% purged?
Levi, yeah.
Wow, that's a problem.
So that's what we'll learn now in chapter 33 in the Tanya, that it's not impossible. It's not like some kind of in the East they say you can only get to this after 70, 80 years of meditation. Or
Does it have to be full-time?
and it's full time, and it's that's because they want to do the impossible, which doesn't really exist. They want to create really an empty space. There is no such thing as an empty space because Hashem is everywhere. So if you fight against that idea that in the end what you're supposed to reach is Hashem's goodness, and you want to get that out too. So I guess to empty your mind that much takes 70, 80 years. But just to feel Hashem as everything, and to connect to the idea that all is good, I think that's much easier.
Isn't that in a way of purging? Is the darkness a way of purging? Because your misconceptions, whatever you place
getting
your
rid of them.
Buddha in, it's now not working. It's shattered. So that's what's saying. Now your system has to be realigned.
Whatever, it's a reset. It's a reset for the whole
And
system.
when you mentioned the 50th gate,
Yeah.
Bina, where this, that is?
The 50th gate is always that state.
The state of what?
The state of being able to purge it. Emunah is like the 50th gate.
Wow.
That's usually how it's explained.
But before, like it's Israel, what was the form of Amuna? If we didn't, was that before Matan Torah? Like, was that the 50th gate in terms of like, did we have that kind of depth? Like the Avos had that depth of the 50th gate of Amuna.
Okay. For them it was very clear. For us, because we're frum, so it becomes a little bit more difficult. So one of the big things that the Baal Shem Tov tried to teach was that there was like the conception socially was that if you learned a lot of Torah, you had the right ideas in your mind, and if you didn't learn any Torah, you were an Am Haaretz, and you just were working on pure faith, you were I want to say it how they treated them, but it was like almost like you're not really a Jew. And the Baal Shem Tov flipped it on its head. And he said, on the contrary, the person who knows a lot, he has to do a lot of work to free himself from his conceptions. And he has to do the more work. The Am Haaretz, who doesn't know anything, he has just simple emunah. He's always in the Sha'ar HaChamishim. He's always in the 50th gate. He's always there. Because he doesn't really have anything to purge. He just simply believes what Hashem sends me is what Hashem wants, and then that's it. And he takes it day by day. Like, whatever Hashem gives me is good. It's easier. That's what they say. In a certain sense, ignorance is bliss. There's a certain bliss to not knowing. But what the Baal Shem Tov didn't say, because you know, then it's over. Game over. You can never come to faith. On the contrary, when you come to faith, it's even greater. If you know a lot, a great deal, and then you're willing to eliminate it and say, I don't know. To say like Moshe Rabbeinu, Eini Yodea. One of the things that Rav Yitzchak talked about in Purim Seudah this year was that every year Yud Daled of Adar, Purim, comes out on the 161st day of the year. Almost every year. It can shift a little. But in most years it's 161 days. That's Eini Yodea. That's the Adar Lo Yada. This year, it came out on the 193rd day because it's a leap year, because they have an inculcated year, as they call it. So because it's an extra Adar. So 193 is equal to Ad Lo Yada itself. Yeah, so it's mamish, like
It's what? I don't,
Ad Lo Yada, until you don't know.
until you don't know.
That's the whole purpose of Purim, is to reach that.
And to train our tongues to say that.
Ad Lo Yada.
Yeah, to say it over.
Can to train your tongue to say Ein Yoda, and then Mordechai taught Ad Lo Yada. Mordechai is a Gilgal, Moshe Rabbeinu. But then there's the 15th of Adar, Purim, Shushan Purim. Shushan Purim, like the Rebbe writes in the very important letter that he writes in part 1 of the Igros, that he explains the concept of the difference between Purim on the 14th and Purim on the 15th. So Purim on the 14th is like the male Purim. And Purim on the 15th is higher, it's the female Purim.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like, this he doesn't say, but it comes out from the words that Mordechai wanted Purim to be on the 14th. And Esther wanted it to be on the 15th. That's why it's called Shushan Purim. One of the most important things that the Zohar brings is that Esther equals Shoshana.
Oh wow.
And 661, both of them, they're called the hexagonal number. It's a Shabbos number, we call it. It's 'cause it's Malchus.
The curse, huh?
Yeah, we mentioned that once. So Shushan Purim is higher than regular Purim.
Of course it is.
The female here is like the makif, is a higher makif, is a yechida, which is feminine. It's not masculine in the usual sense. Even though in the end we say leit smola v'hayatika kula yamina, there's no left hand side here; it's all right hand. But it means that the whole left was included within the right. The right is holding all of it. So it's like a unification between the male and the female. Anyway, there's a lot to be said about that. But in any case, the 15th day is always when the moon is full, the female is full.
15th of Nisan. Sukkot.
So these are days in which you reach Emunah, in which you reach the highest level. And then then comes down the certainty. The trust and confidence is like certainty. That now I can focus, now I can do something new. And I can achieve. To have trust in Hashem means that I trust that Hashem has given me the power to achieve my goals. It's self-confidence. Make no mistake. People talk about self-confidence like it's something negative. If you just have self-confidence, then it is something negative. But if the self-confidence comes out of emunah, that first of all is only Hashem, and Hashem has entrusted me with a certain mission in life. So then I have self-confidence that I can reach this, I can attain this goal. I won't leave this world without attaining that goal. Okay?
This world on this Gilgul or this world Stam.
So that's what we talked about, that the final, right, that each person is like a line. And out of all the lines together, you get a picture of the circle.
Right.
So we don't really attain the goal in the end, but the silhouette of all the lines together forms a circle that represents the final goal of everything. In any case. So when does this happen? That if you have faith during the darkness, meaning that you're able to purge and empty yourself, then then the day comes. The new day dawns, and the day is already confidence. It's already trust in Hashem. It's already the line that comes down. Let's just read it again. So I passed out new ones, so it's better to take the new one.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't pass them out. I put them here. So nobody took them. It's not the same, because
Do
there
you
were
have
all
enough
kinds
for
of.
everybody? I gave some.
I don't know. Because there was some stuff missing and some stuff that we had to correct. And, so it's the same thing as line 29 as it was before. Before it was line 30. The previous page 2 started with line 30.
Yeah.
So now it starts with line 29. I don't know how that happened.
It's It's not the same?
It's not the same.
I don't know, you gave out something totally different now?
And like the
Fraction.
same light,
A
same
fraction
light,
difference.
29 phase acts like the sun said.
Almost.
I don't,
So maybe.
I don't know what he's giving
So I
out.
made 10 because that's what I thought
But
we usually
give
are.
it to me so I can have it in my hand, and make more.
And-
Can this is it, this is what you just gave out, and I
Yeah,
didn't
it's a
give
new
this
one.
to anybody?
Whoever took.
Well,
It
then
was
I
me.
better go make some.
So I'll read and you can listen. So this process is also alluded to in the idiom first darkness, then light. It's one of the basic concepts of Yiddishkeit. That everything that comes out in the world first has to be dark and then it becomes illuminated. First chaos, then order. There's a lot of examples of this. And in the words that the Pasuk in Tehillim says, your faith, Hashem, is during the night. During the night we have faith, we have emunah. The onset of the darkness and the night is heralded by the setting of the sun. So what do you see at first? You see the sun setting. What does that mean? In the Torah, sunset is described as a day being purified. It's like that the sun, which gives you light, all the thoughts in my mind are like the sun. So it travels in the ocean. It goes to immerse itself in the waters. So it purifies itself. And to purify itself means that it goes back to its source. That it becomes pure again. Only Hashem is here. The setting of all light that filled the sky, symbolizing the thoughts that illuminated the fabric of our consciousness, are cleared by faith. Represented by the darkness of the night, the time in which we exercise faith. So the darkness is like the cleansing of all the previous thoughts, all the previous conceptions that I have. So that's the second part of the verse. Emunatcha baleilot. Your faith at night. But the first part of the verse is le'agid baboker chasdecha, to say or to utter your kindness in the morning. So the first part of the verse, your faith, God, is during the night, is to speak your kindness in the morning. So you actually have to read them backwards. A lot of times that's how the Baal Shem Tov explains something. That להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, the ve'emunatcha, we don't usually understand it. The vav has two meanings in Hebrew. It's either a vav chibul, which means that it's like a conjunctive and, or it's a vav hipuch. It changes the tense from future to past. So here, there's even a double reason to do that, because emunatcha starts with an aleph. And the letters that make a verb into something that's future tense are aleph, yud, taf, nun, right? Otiot eitan, they're called. So, when I say, I will go, in Hebrew, I say, ani eilech. By the way, if you have anybody who's under the age of 30, I guess, but it's not, unfortunately, it's already worse than that. If you have anybody in your home who's under the age of 30 and is a native Hebrew speaker, every time they say ani yeilech with a yud, you got to give them a strong slap in the face for brutalizing the language and destroying it. Because you say eilech, not yeilech. And all the young people now, they don't know the difference, and
Why
they
would
say,
they say Yeleh?
I don't know, I have no idea. They say that because
Where did it get it from?
because one of the ways that you say it is with a yud, hu yelech, and when they say he, hu yelech, it's with a yud, and then they say hu yelech, ani yelech also, hu yelech v'ani yelech. Something like that happens in their head. I don't know what happens. So,
We're not young, so we don't.
okay. So you have to say ani eilech, it's with an aleph. Ani eilech, ata teilech, hu yelech. So, so over your head, you're so lucky, because every time I hear this, I'm like, I feel like somebody's stabbing me. there's the stuff in the language I don't know either.
They do
but this
it
is like so.
deliberate in order to.
No,
make
no,
it
no,
sound-
no. They just don't know. It's easier for me. It's so hard. I can't do that. Anyway, so emunatcha is it also starts with an aleph. So it doesn't mean I will have faith in you. I'm just saying it is a drush that the vav here like takes it and flips the order of the verse, and it happens a lot of times. It's called that you take the end of the verse and you move it to the beginning for some reason. Right? Here it's not exactly the end of the verse, it's the middle of the verse. It's called nesira in Kabbalah, they call it. That you take a piece of the verse, you cut it out, and you move it to another place. So usually you have to do it after a vav, because the vav is like the sign that you can do it. It's called Gor'inu Mosifim V'Dorshim. That's how the sages call it.
Keep a drush on it.
Okay. Rashi brings it in a few places. That to understand this, you have to take it and take the middle of the verse out and move it to the beginning, and then you can read it and understand what it says. So here it's like Ve'emunatcha b'leilot le'agid b'boker chasdecha. That you have to have faith at night in order to speak Hashem's kindness in the morning. But to speak here, lehagid, is from the same word as gid. Gid means like a conduit, or usually, I don't know how to say that word, I never get it right. S-I-N-E-W, how do you pronounce it?
Sinu.
So everybody pronounced it right, and then one day I'll learn. I keep saying something else. So so not to put a stake through somebody else's heart. Stay silent. It's better. So you draw it down like a line. That's exactly what the idea is. That the kindness is the sign for the confidence that comes down, for the new ray of light that comes down. So when you speak it, la'agid, it's like now you're speaking Hashem's kindness. So that's bringing down the new light that will fill the void that you created during the night. So we talked about this last time, that the best time to do this meditation always is at dawn, just before dawn. Every day, that's what David HaMelech did every day. That he woke the dawn. To wake the dawn is exactly this. Ani me'ir et hashachar, ve'en hashachar me'ir oti. I awaken the darkness. Shachar, dawn in Hebrew is actually darkness. Shachar comes from the word shachol, from black. So how do you awaken the darkness? That you have to see the darkness and you have to see yourself pulling new confidence into it. That you can make something new today. And it's a new ray of light. It's a new beginning all the time. And it's the hardest part of, and it's always also described by the sages as the hardest part of the night. It's just before dawn. It's the darkest part of the night. It's the hardest part of the night, because this we'll learn later. That the moment that you take the new ray out, in Kabbalah it's called Reshit HaKav. It's the beginning of the ray. You have to make a leap, a tremendous leap in yourself, in everything, to be able to really push something new into your reality. It's very, very difficult. I was just say that so we'll learn later. The Rebbe Rayatz brings us in a letter. So one of the most beautiful examples is how he reads Tanakh. You got to see how this guy reads. It's unbelievable. Yeah, he says. It's so beautiful, I can't hold back. It's just, he says that Rachav, who was the woman that Yeshua and Kalev went to in Jericho, so she made them promise that they wouldn't kill her. So how did she try to ensure her safety? She put a red string out through the window. Where did she live? She lived on the wall. So now let's think about it, says the Rebbe Rayatz. What are the chances, if they're going to bring down the walls, what are the chances that this string is going to be intact when the armies come in? Very slim. Very, very slim. Not to mention it's just a string. She had to make it just a string because it couldn't be too conspicuous. But what are the chances? There's really no chance. So why did she do that? So he says that's what it means, that a person will cling to a straw to save himself rather than have to do something new. Meaning that we have ingrained in us this need to continue what already exists and not do something new. Because it's much scarier in the end to do something new than it is to even if it's just a straw and I'm drowning in the ocean, I'd rather cling to a straw than try to figure out how to swim.
So what should she have done?
What?
What should she have done?
No, tell me.
Converted.
What she
She did, but she
which
did.
eventually she had to do
A
anyway.
string worm though, she survived.
So,
So-
because they're Hashem.
String
God
of
does
hope.
miracles.
This is the Chut Shel Tikva, her
Right,
hope.
but it says the Rayat. This
What
is
should she have done?
Converted.
She
converted.
did.
But eventually she
To
did.
convert,
But did she need to convert then to
can before the whole thing happened.
And what would have been different?
She would have gone and joined the Jews outside.
Moved out of the wall.
Instead, she.
But she couldn't bring, because to convert that's like the Reshita Kav. That's like what it means to bring out a new ray of light. It's a conversion. It's almost like you become something that you weren't before.
So she's saying practically she should have lived with her family.
Everything,
then
with her
and
family,
rather than
convinced-
saying,
it ma-
"Don't kill us."
right,
Okay.
And that's harder.
I would
It's a
guess
lot
that she
harder.
tried
But
to
it's
do
but it,
that, and they didn't accept it. That's how my fantasy story goes.
Did it take a long time like it does now to convert?
no, and it was much easier. But it doesn't matter. If just the very fact that you would have said we want to convert,
Would have
would have
been
been
enough.
accepted.
Maybe that's why the string was saved now.
So there's obviously some profound, this is the paradox thing about
So,
it-
so,
it-
so the Rebbe Rayatz, that just shows human nature, that we'd rather continue the old
but it
conception.
But it worked. She survived.
said it was just because Hashem wanted her to survive, but it's not right for the person.
No.
It's like we always say, it's about this, what's it called? It's called tikvat chut hashani, the hope of the string, the red string, hope of the red string. So what is that like? It's like the state of Israel. It's all hope. And somehow this is going to work out. And there's an utter unwillingness to understand that this is not going to work. Like it can't survive.
But it might.
You
That's
have
the
to convert.
problem.
You have to.
It's going to.
But it doesn't matter. The moment of conversion, like the Rebbe explained, is completely different from what you were before. It's not that the state of Israel becomes something, like slowly transforms, evolves into something new. It can't evolve. It has to be a complete, utter transformation. Like a convert,
In order to.
to Chaz v'Shalom destroyed.
No.
But again, in the conception, the consciousness, what are we looking for? So there has to be a complete conversion. Like what I thought before, that's exactly for this whole thing is, the Rebbe, when he taught this, he definitely, the undertone all the time was that this is what has to happen here.
Right.
He kept talking about this in the context of Eretz Yisrael.
He writes books on that.
That people have to realize that the old way of thinking is just not gonna work. And it's like conversion. It's almost like you have to become something different than you were before. It's the same feeling in a certain sense. Usually they say that when a person comes to the Rebbe for the first time, it's like he was born that day. What do you mean he was born? He wasn't born that day. So, but to be able to enter into that frame of mind is like, it so purges the old conception of what Yiddishkeit means and what the whole thing is. Again, what I heard Vashgacha Pratis on the way here, that a regular Jew thinks that Messianism means that Hashem takes care of everything. Just to understand that it's exactly the opposite of what you thought. Is a purging of the whole consciousness from before.
Because he may be focused as for.
That's why people are so against it also, because they think, what does it mean? It means that we won't have free will, because Hashem will take care of everything. It's the opposite. It's to give you free will, to free you much more than you were free before. And like the convert now becomes really free. Why? Because before he was only free on 7 dimensions. He had 7 mitzvahs that he had to keep as a non-Jew. But now he has 613 dimensions to work in. That's a completely new level of freedom that's much harder to exercise and to use properly. So this new ray of light is very hard to bring down. You have to have a lot of willingness to jump into the waters, to jump into the new day. But that's why it's described that Hashem does it with loving kindness still. It still brings you kindness. It's called Chasdecha Hashem Alai. That you feel that Hashem wants you though too.
Is this fourth generation emphasis maybe on conversion to bring our consciousness up that we also have to convert? It's the name of the game now.
Right.
Just convert, change, and yeah.
That's what it means, Torah. That's this week's parsha.
Say it again. What does it
The
mean?
concept of the new Torah is in the Medrash in this week's parsha, the end of Medrash Rabbah and Shmini, and he says it about the Chazer.
About what?
Chazer and about the Leviathan that will shecht
New Torah.
the Shorabal, the wild boar.
Because in the future, the Chazir will
Well,
be
that's-
kasher.
What about the Leviathan?
That's where it says it. It's Torah Chadashah because you can't shecht with a snapir. You can't shecht with the fin from a fish because it pulls the simanim. It doesn't make a clean cut. And therefore, it said, how can the tzaddikim afterwards eat from Shorabal?
Yeah.
How can they eat from it? All the more so that's the nechira, which is what the wild ox does to the Leviathan. He kills him with his horn. So that's entirely a nevela. So how can that be kosher? And then tzaddikim are going to eat from these two. Again, this is all imagery. It's not there's no wild ox out there. So there's a lot of explanations what this imagery means. But in the end, the halacha has to still, even the halachas has to be explained still in some way that makes sense. So they say it doesn't make sense in this imagery. Like, how do you understand? So it's not so Torah Chadashah Amitit. It will be a new explanation for the Torah. And specifically about shechting. We talked a little about shechting last week. Huh?
Yes, but I can't remember. I do remember.
We talked about this. The shechting. The Rebbe says is to return the soul to its origin. We did.
We talked about shechting is.
Anyway,
Do they say that in the Latit Lavod Chazir will be kasher?
right. That's also Torah Chadashah Amitit. It's also. How can that be? Because Natan Slifkin will redefine the taxonomy of all the animals, and we'll find out that the Chazer that we have today is not the Chazer that we used to have. We'll have to admit
Masechet
that the nature
Chulin.
changes.
Masechet Chulin will be a different Masechet.
No. It says the reality will somehow reflect something new. The
Like
Torah
after the
doesn't
Mabul,
change.
after
The Torah
Mabul.
doesn't change,
No.
but the reality changes all the time.
So our conception changes.
Anyway. So this concept is similarly found in the verse, he who trusts in Hashem is surrounded by kindness. So trust and kindness are related, and in the Sfirot it's very easy. It's just Chesed is above Netzach, and Netzach is Bitochon. Netzach is what trust and confidence is. Right? So how is this described in the Gemara? Reish Lakish said, whoever occupies himself with Torah at night, the Almighty extends a thread of kindness over him by day. Here he even uses chut shel chesed. It's called the thread of kindness. In the pasuk, it was leagid baboker chaser. We had to darshan the word lehagid. We had to say leagid means to a conduit. But when Reish Lakish explains it, he explains it mamish literally. He says it's a thread of kindness. Well, it's not literal. It's a figure, but the figure is literally a thread. As it is stated, by day God will command His kindness. And what is the reason? Here he shows us exactly the same thing. Because, and in the night His song, the Torah is with me. So ever heard the Melech Khan's very catchy tune to this? Yo Imam, Yitzaveh Hashem Chazdoi. You heard this?
Carry
You
on.
need to listen more to the Jewish music. What? No. It's a guy called Melech Khan. Melech Cohen, but he's a Khan. So look it up on YouTube. a little while ago, I thought that in all my classes I have to stop in the middle and sing something to let people think a little. Let it sit.
Because it's so deep.
Yeah, let it
It's so
sit.
deep.
Let it sit. For me also, let it sit. And then it's also a natural place to stop the recording.
Good time.
But I never know how to do it. I can't do it like.
We can't sing. You sing.
Can
we will
because it's so
breathe
weird.
Deeply,
So
deeply.
I can't do it. Especially since I would probably ruin the song, but that's another problem. I could put it on, and then you could hear it.
Go ahead.
So, okay.
When we went to see the Rav, and I think Shoshana was there with the music, with the harp.
Oh, you had the harp?
No, she talked about it.
Ah,
So he said, yes, a good idea to combine like the shiurim with the music.
Oh, yes, he wants that very much.
Oh, is there another copy of the new one? I actually don't.
No, that's the old.
So here, what's the original verse? Yomam yitzaveh Hashem chazdo v'layla shiro imi. It's the same thing as in the pasuk that we learned from Tehillim. And Tehillim was le'agid b'boker chazdecha v'munatcha v'leilot, to say your kindness in the day and your faith at night.
Shir Shel Shabbat.
And here in this verse that we say before Ma'ariv, it's Yomam yitzaveh Hashem chazdo, in the day Hashem commands His kindness, uvalayla shiro imi, and in the nighttime His song is with me. And so Reish Lakish here shows uvalayla, same thing, that you have to say that uvalayla is the reason for what happens in the day. These are two verses, one is from Tehillim, both of them from Tehillim, right? No, they're not both from Tehillim. Yomam Yitzaveh, no, they are both from Tehillim. They're both from Tehillim. So, Reish Lakish says, at least in the second one, Yomam Yitzaveh Hashem Chasdo, Hashem will command His kindness in the morning, Uvalayla Shiro Imi, and at night His song is with me. You have to flip the order. Uvalayla Shiro Imi, first His song is with me at night, and His song is the person who learns Torah at night. And then Yomam Yitzaveh Hashem Chasdo, and then Hashem commands His kindness in the morning. It's the same idea that sometimes you have to flip the order to understand the cause and effect, because the cause and effect is like backwards in the beginning, or it seems to be backwards. So so why is there kindness, a thread of kindness in the day? Why are you able to pull down the new ray of light in the day? Because of you're learning Torah at night. And here he says that Torah is called Shirah, it's called the song. So it's not exactly, it's not like, a lot of ways to learn Torah. It can be the Torah is very, very profound thought. But here on purpose he calls it Shirah. It's like, again, the Torah is called song. The famous gematria that Shirah equals tefillah. That song is equal to prayer. So what is this prayer? It's emptying yourself. It's like to be willing to anticipate something new. So the thread of kindness is a symbol identical to the ray of light that is extended into the darkness of the empty void created by the power of faith. So another thing is that probably usually the mitzvah that we can do during the night is to learn Torah. There's not very many, we talked about there's not so many mitzvot that a person can do at night. Once our consciousness has been purged and emptied of all the seeming clarity and brightness of our previous thoughts, which we said they're like the sun sets, it's like the tumbles, purifies. A new light can shine. God said, let there be light. And then every day is like a new light, a new ray. So now we asked, how do you do this? So this is the meaning of a tzaddik lives by his faith. V'tzadik be'emunato yichye. So here we'll begin with one of them. Be'emunato usually means two emunot, two types of faith. every tzaddik has two things that he believes in. What are the two things? How can you believe in two things? So that's a big chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov. That you believe in Hashem and you believe in every Jew. Meaning that you believe in Hashem as transcendent, as above everything. But you also believe in the immanence of Hashem in every person, in every Jew. That Hashem is not just infinite outside the world, He's also infinite inside. Infinite inside means that I have faith in, first of all, you have to have faith in your children and your people that are close to you. And when you have faith, it doesn't necessarily mean that you tell them all day long that they're the best in the world, because that's not exactly faith. But faith is that I always see that this will turn out well, and I have a good feeling about this. Never lose that. Because that's the easiest thing to do is when something doesn't work out with the people that are close to us the way that we'd like it to. So we fall. We become we fall into despair, into Yeush. But Emunah is Ayin. It's not Yeush is Yeshut. To be in despair is to feel too much that what I see in front of me, this is all there is. It's to believe too much in the Yesh. The Yesh that we see in front of us is not yet rectified. So to have faith really is to believe in the Ayin behind the faith. Like we already said this, right? That Emunah v'bitachon is like Ayin and Yesh. Right? We talked about this. Ayin and Yesh. Nothingness and somethingness. And the Emunah is to purge. It's to feel the Ayin behind everything. That Hashem is behind everything. And Yesh is that I'm here. That I need to express my mission. I need to do what Hashem entrusted in me. So Hashem has Emunah in me. Just like I have Emunah in Him. So the tzaddik, he has Emunah in both. He both has, every Jew is a tzaddik. So Baal Shem Tov, one of his major things is that you have to have two faiths, be'emunato, which if you transmute the letters, transpose them, so it spells bet emunot, two emunot, two faiths. The first faith is in Hashem, and the second faith is in other souls, in another Jew.
So say it again, please. So what we see in front of us is Ayin. It's not really.
No, the Yesh that we see in front of us is not yet a rectified Yesh. It doesn't reflect Hashem fully. So don't believe it too much.
And don't let it pull you down.
Yeah, because it's just what it looks like at this moment. If I connect to the Ayin behind it, it can become something new, which is exactly what we're doing all the time. The purging is like to connect to the Ayin behind everything, and then that brings out a new understanding of the Yesh, a new reflection of the Yesh.
C'est avodah.
How do you spell Ayin?
Aleph Yud Nun. So this is the meaning of when a tzaddik lives by his faith. Tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. It is explained in the Tanya that this comes about, meaning to come to faith, to live by faith, to become one with faith. Comes about by meditating and concentrating upon the nullification of all beings. Nullification, that's ayin. Bittul, there's nothing here. That is, all thoughts that may enter a person's mind before Him, meaning that before Hashem, it's as if all this is like nothing. We said that before, that Hashem is infinite, so any conception that I have of Him, and I have to form a conception, if I'm a human being, I can't not conceive of Hashem. My mind can't be empty. I have to have a relationship. So at this point, I understand Hashem this and this way, and I conceive of Him in this and this way. So that, from Hashem's perspective, anything that I think about Him is like nothing, because it can't capture everything. So that's why the Baal Shem Tov taught all the time that it's not that you shouldn't throw away your conceptions, meaning feel that they are futile. They're not futile. You have to learn. We learned this a lot of times. That the Chacham says in one of the books, one of the early books of philosophy, Tachlit ha'idiyah shelo neda, that the end of all knowledge is to know that you don't know. So if that's the end of all knowledge, that I can't know, meaning I can't know Hashem, so why even start? So he says the fool says, since you can't know the fool, because he's an atzel, he's like he's lazy. So Shlomo Amel says, if you're lazy, go look at the ant, go look at the locust. Look at how they live. They don't have a conception at all of who their leader is. Asher en la katzin sar u'moshel. The ant doesn't know who it's working for. It doesn't know. So it's like if you can't know, so maybe what you do is you sit back and roast in the sun.
Roast.
What people do, they roast themselves. Bet and gav, it's called. You turn yourself over side to side. So maybe that's what you do. So you see, the ant, even though it doesn't know who its leader is, it has no conception of who the leader is. The ant,
Yes.
A-N-T,
But it still works.
And for me.
and they work all the time, even though they can't know. They never see the queen. They have no clue who they're working for. It's also like a different species almost, like from them. They can't relate even. And yet everything they're doing is to keep this queen alive. But they don't know who the queen is. They've never seen her. They don't know anything about her. So why are they doing it? It says it because they're not lazy.
To learn from them.
Okay, so go learn from them. That even if you don't know, even if the end of all knowledge is to know that you don't know, that you cannot know even.
Yes.
I can never know Hashem.
Yes.
So maybe this, I should just tell the Torah is very nice there. It lines the walls very nicely. There's a lot of books there. It makes a nice tapestry. But no, you have to start learning. Even though in the end, every day you have to come to the realization that I don't know Hashem.
And you're there.
So he says the fool is like he never went to the ant. He never went to see that you have to work anyway. That there's a mal that you were born to work. It's also the same thing. Wow.
People get discouraged.
Of course I get discouraged.
Yeah, but you can get over it.
In the end, what do you leave the world with physically? Nothing. It doesn't matter how much money you made in the life. And yet, even though you don't leave with anything, what do people do? They're industrious. They keep doing. They make more and more and more and more. For what? In the end, you don't know. In the end, you live with. Instead of it, you don't get anything. So why do you do it? Because you're not lazy. So when a person's in despair, when if they think about this too long and too hard, then in the end I won't leave with anything. So they might stop doing.
Why bother?
Yeah, why bother? What's the point? So he says, even if you come to that realization, go look at the ants and see that it doesn't matter. It only lives for half a year, and it can only eat a small part of what it gathers, and yet it gathers enough for 300 years.
That's the
For 300
emunah.
years of its
That's
life.
the emunah, that they will live longer.
Okay? So even though I can't even use all my conceptions of Hashem, everything I learned is way too much. I can't use all of it. But it's
But that would
that's
convince
what
a
it means to be industrious.
That would convince a person, yeah.
Settle, he says that's learn from nature. At least be like nature. Don't be worse than nature. That in nature there are those who they're not working for themselves, and yet they work all the time. They don't stop.
You have to do something.
Okay, you have to be.
So might as well learn Torah.
Okay, so even though it's too much, I'll never use all of it. Settle.
You do. Don't ask questions.
So said the Baal Shem Tov, so this means that only the fool, he says, because I can't reach any true conception of Hashem, so it's not worth starting even, because in the end, but by the Baal Shem Tov it's even worse. Why is it even worse? He made it even harder, because he said every day, what you learned yesterday, forget it. Why? Because Tachlit, you have to, Tachlit means the purpose of knowledge is to know that you don't know. So what I learned today is for me to purge it. It's for me to throw it out. Because tomorrow I'll understand something new. And then he told the famous story that he told from the Rasag, I don't know where he took it from, right? About the Rav Sadia Gaon, that he was hosted by somebody who didn't know who he was, and then after the Rav Sadia Gaon left, so somebody told the Baal Habayit, the host, that he had been hosting what's called the Reish Mitivta, the head of the academy, and he said he didn't know. So he ran after him. He took his fastest horse and he chased him for a few hours until he got to his carriage. And they stopped him, and the Rasag thought that something had happened in his home, that he chased after him to ask him to pray for him or something. So he was alarmed. He thought something had happened. And the guy gets off the horse and falls at his feet and says, "I beg your forgiveness." So he says, "What do you want my forgiveness for?" It's because I didn't know it was you. So he says, so everything was fine, the hosting, this beautiful house, everything was taken care of. And he says, "No, if I would have known it's you, it would have been 1,000,000 times better." So the Baal Shem Tov taught this. He said, if you think you know Hashem based on what you knew yesterday, and you're trying to host Hashem today, so it's old stuff. Hashem is something new today, and if you don't know who He is today, then you have to do tshuva for it. So that's tshuva by a tzaddik. You didn't do anything wrong, but if I would have known who you are today, then it would have been nothing like the way I acted today. I would have acted 1,000,000 times better, even though there's no difference really. Meaning, I was fine yesterday, I also was serving Hashem and so on. But today I know, how did that happen? Because during the night I purged it all. So one of the things that, so anyway, there's a lot
New
to say about it.
neshama in the morning.
Okay, so you get a new neshama. Right. So the new neshama has a new conception of Hashem. So the Baal Shem Tov taught, this was, if you want to summarize his whole theological stance, is that you have to learn as much as you can, conceive of Hashem as best as you can, and then toss it out. You go from yesh to ein, from yesh to ein.
That sounds like run and return.
Okay, it's a run and return. That's an explanation of what run and return means. Except that here, the run and return is like the opposite. It's not I'm running to Hashem and then returning to myself. It's the opposite. The neshama comes down, that's the run. So it conceives of Hashem in a certain way in this world, and every night the neshama goes back to its source. So it's an ein, it's a
Gives a din v'cheshbon.
okay, and this is what I understood today, and then they reset it. And it goes back to its source, so it's like
Cleanse it.
kind of cleanse it, and now you come back and you re-understand what Hashem is. So if you can do this process properly, so that's what's called Ein V'yesh by the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, so the meditation here is explained in length in the Tanya. That it's called concentrating upon the nullification of all beings before Hashem. Total nullification. By doing so, the person makes space, as it were, for the revelation of God's essential light. So, like we said, that once I remove all my conceptions, all my thoughts, so then Hashem can appear in His infinite light. The void is really the appearance of Hashem's infinite light, not His finite light. That's what I'm getting rid of. My conceptions are like His finite light. There's always a question in the Arizal. How can you say that the Arizal has a saying? He says, "From the thickening of the lights, the vessels were formed." What does that mean? That the thickening of the lights, the vessels were formed? This light? Usually we understand vessels as being like physical objects.
Or constriction, right? Like some kind of constriction to allow the light to be, yeah.
Again, so what is light in? So usually the way people understand is the light is spiritual and vessels are physical. That's but it's not true. In each one of these categories there's lights and vessels. In the spiritual there's lights and vessels, in the physical there's lights and vessels. What's a spiritual in man, in the human being? It's his thoughts, his feelings. So there's light and vessels inside. What's the difference between them? That the lights are the infinite, and the vessels are the finite. So if I go through the day and I begin to form a theory of what Hashem is, what is Hashem now? Like, what does Hashem want from me now? I have a theory about what He wants from me today. I had a theory that He wanted me to come here to talk, but I don't know. It's a theory. Because when I set out in the morning, it could be that I don't end up here. I don't know. It's a theory that I have. So that theory, what did it come from? It comes from a thickening of the vessel, of the light, meaning the infinite was thickened, meaning we become condensed, and it formed a vessel for the light. But that's all in the thought. It's not that the vessel is my brain or my body or that. The thought has to, the light of thought has to enter some kind of vessel of thought. So the vessel of thought is like my theory, like what I'm thinking of. But what's the life force behind it, that there's some kind of Hashem in all this, that's the infinite light that I can't conceive. So that's called the thickening of the lights becomes the vessels. Meaning it goes from a state of infinity to a state. I can't think of infinity. When I wake up in the morning, maybe I want to do everything. Because maybe the first moment that I wake up, I feel like I can be everything. But then, one of my children says something, my wife says something. And I remember, wait a minute, I'm not everything. I have to go do this, I have to go do that. And suddenly become very constricted. So that's the thickening of the light. And suddenly I have a certain conception of what I need to. What time is it, just?
25 to 2.
So I have to end. So we didn't get to chapter 33 today either. So let's just finish this thought and then throw it away. At least at night.
Start again.
Start with something. Next time we'll start with something new. So the thickening is that it goes from an infinite state that it could have been anything, and it became something. The somethingness is the vessel. The anything is like the nothingness. Nothingness really means it could be anything. Nothing that doesn't mean there's nothing here. It just means it's not defined. Really, that's what we mean when we say Ayin. When we say Ayin, we mean it's not defined yet. So when I wake up in the morning, here I am. Baruch Hashem, my body works, my mind works. I could do anything. Maybe I could wake up. There was a guy who was like this. Anybody who ever saw Catch Me If You Can. So he's a crazy con artist. That every day he woke up and he was something else. He's an airline pilot. What's the problem? He goes into the airport. He doesn't know how to fly. It doesn't matter though. He goes. You see that it's just a thickening of the lights. He has to go into somebody's locker, take their captain uniform, and he goes on a plane. And it's a true story. So he's Michigan. Why? Because he's nothingness. He's like you can't define him. Every day he becomes something else. The next day he was a doctor for like 25 years. He did surgery. And you wonder about this. You say, wait a minute, does it really take 15 years to become an expert surgeon? The guy can wake up in the morning and do it. What do you need? You need a lot of chutzpah. My light can be defined any way that I want. It's crazy. Obviously, we don't want things to work that way. But that's how we'll wake up. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow. There's a story like that from Kafka, right? Which is the opposite side, the metamorphosis, that you don't know what you'll wake up like tomorrow. So he did it because Kafka is all about despair, because he couldn't stand the modern world and modern bureaucracy. So for him, it was the guy wakes up as a cockroach in the morning, but he's still him, but his vessel is now like that, and everybody's sort of embarrassed by the fact that they now have a son who's a cockroach. Whatever. Read it once when you really have nothing to do.
Read it. That's you.
But what is it trying to say? That the consciousness could be in any vessel, whatever vessel it goes into. And the modern world turns me into a cockroach in the end. That's all I am. That's all I am. That's what it's a satire. It's not exactly a satire, but it's like it's trying to tell you. you've been stripped of your possibilities, meaning somebody has defined that this is all you can be, meaning that you're always stuck in these thick vessels, this thickened light, and you never have any chance to go back to the infinite light that you have inside. So that's what the nighttime is for. And to do that, you have to see that everything that I've become, but you also have to be willing to give up the good things that you have.
How does dreaming get into this?
In dreaming, it's like there's a certain illumination from the infinite light, so that suddenly the mind is more free to thicken itself, to thicken the light as you're somebody else entirely, or you do other things. Again, all the fantasies and all the things in dreams that don't really exist, they're like a tiny bit of feeling the infinite forming in me in a different way, meaning I wear a different garment. This has never happened to me in a dream, I think, but maybe it has. I'm trying to remember if I've ever dreamt that I'm a woman. If that ever happened.
When
I
we're
don't
free
remember.
to thicken light.
The infinite can be anything. The consciousness can be anything. Can I dream?
Why would you benefit from that?
Yeah.
Because you took it that far, you mean?
I'm wondering if it was ever again so stripped of my identity that I was able to like enter into a completely different sexual identity. Even that I don't remember anything like that. But certainly, as a bird, that certainly happens to a lot of people. That suddenly you feel that you can fly and that you can do other things, in a certain sense, all the interest in superheroism today comes from that dream state, where you can enter into something new. This we won't have time to get into, but in the time of the sages, the prophecy was attained through a semi-dream state. We talk about Masechet Chagiga. We talked about it a few times. It's called Nim velo nim, tir velo tir. That's like some half state between being awake and being asleep. So the prophecy is like trying to take your infinite light and put it into something, into a different vessel. You can only do it when you're half dreaming, half. Okay. Anyway, so.
How much good do you have to be willing to give up?
What?
How much good do you have to be willing to give up?
You don't give it. It's not
So
really
you have to
giving
be
it up.
willing to give up
The
your
goodness
good.
doesn't move. It's here. Whatever you've created. But it's like you have to not give up, but be willing to believe that there's more goodness waiting for you. That much, much more than what I've seen until
So
now
why would you
will be
have to? How
tomorrow.
come you stated it like that? You said you have to be willing
Because
to give up your good.
Kafka is like that. I'm giving up my good to be in a modern world. But the result is that I've lost everything. I've become a cockroach.
Okay.
And here the understanding is, no, I'm giving up the good, not really giving it up, in order to attain a higher good that I still can't even conceive. I'm going forward, not
So
backwards.
understanding This is nothing.
This is nothing
what
compared to what there will be
happened.
That's what we said. Rachav had to. It's scary to become a Jew.
Maybe
But she had to go through
Maybe
this.
she suggested it to them and they weren't ready, and that's why her string was.
Maybe.
Her string worked.
That would
Hashem
define.
showed them something.
That would define our generation, where the Goyim want to already, but the Jews are not ready for it.
I think I didn't give you, this is the original. I gave you, whatever I gave you back. Can I?
I'll see. No.
Okay. I will not be here next week.
I know you're going to Morocco.
Yes, so.